Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on our comic book creator interviews, including our monthly Chichester chats with comic book legend DG Chichester, superhero movie brackets in our search for the worst comic book movie of all time, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/CapesandLunatics. Hope to see you there.
Hello and welcome once again to Superconnectivity. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser. And with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
Hey, it's Mozz.
Mozz! Welcome back. It's another episode of Superconnectivity. And just breaking news. At the time of recording, we have a new trailer for the Mario film. It's called the Mario film or the Super Mario film. I forget.
Sure.
So we get a lot on this right now. There's a lot of controversy because Charles Martinet was not hired to do the voice of Mario in it.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Martinet, he's a very talented voice actor, beloved, much in the same way that Frank Welker is, and like how people said you can't do Optimus Prime without Frank Welker, and that whole field. Although I do think Charles Martinet falls into a very interesting category. Now, I don't know if you've ever played Mario, but, he has this goofy Italian accent, and say, "It's me, Mario." Now, this is where it gets interesting, because we're going to do some deep lore from our good friend, the game theorist, Matt Pat, as we discuss what's about to happen. So, now, to give you an entire history of Mario, back in the late 80s, we got our first Super Mario cartoons. And those were not voiced by Charles Martinet. The voice of Mario
Did
was
they come out after the game or before the game?
They came out after the game.
So who did the voice in the game? And was the voice in the game?
There was no voice in the game. Because this is back when we had 16-bit computers.
So in that version, there was only music and and boops, but there were no voice.
There was no voice acting. No.
Oh.
Because you were just jumping and you were jumping.
Oh, yeah, you just read script of what people said, right?
Exactly. Your princess is in another castle, Mario. I'm sorry. And but at that time, the first voice of Mario was one Captain Lou Albano of WWF fame. And he played it as a Brooklyn plumber.
Oh.
Now, here's where you get into the lore. In this scene, we have one moment where Chris Pratt puts on the "It's me" kind of a voice, and he's doing some kind of an incantation before he has to face Donkey Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Let's a fight." And then he fights, and then Donkey Kong beats him up. But what's interesting is that we do see, what is it? Is it Grandpa Kong or Pappy Kong, Tristan? Anyway, you see the older Donkey Kong. Yeah, I forget his name. Yeah, well, Donkey Kong, and then there's the old one, the old Grandpa Kong.
Interesting.
So, as Matt Pat pointed out in a previous episode of Game Theory, that basically the Mario we see in Donkey Kong isn't the Mario we see in all of the other stuff. That's Mario's son. And the first Mario faced the first Donkey Kong. And now you can make this argument that that's the Mario that has the weird accent, that has the original Italian accent. And then the later Mario and Luigi, raised in Brooklyn, just have a nice standard Brooklyn accent. But when he's invoking it, he's going to invoke that phrase his father used.
I'm with that. Then
Yeah, I mean, I think
don't really have a problem with it either way. I don't understand what people's problem is. It's a silly movie,
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest problem was that Charles Martinet was not asked to do it. It's sort of like when Batman '89 came out. And
I know.
Adam West kind of made it, and actually Charles Martinet has not made a big deal about it.
Yeah,
other people have,
right.
But
on behalf of Charles Martinet, who probably doesn't care. But either way, things move on. It's just
exactly. But
it looks like a really fun movie. The action looks really cool, and the acting sounds like it's going to be really cool. It seems like the trailer, the moments they build up where it's dramatic are going to I can't wait to go see this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, exactly. And Charlie Day as Luigi is very nice.
That was a nice little surprise. I'll take Charlie Day in anything.
Yeah. And, it's actually, what is it? It's Keegan Michael Key as Toad. So that's great. Yeah. So, he's getting to do, he does a whole song on that, and it's interesting when you get into voice acting because there is so much you get to do outside of who you might ordinarily be cast as. And, of course, Chris Pratt, for some reason there's people that just don't like Chris Pratt. I don't know why. I try not to get involved. It's a funny thing. It's like certainly sometimes, actors like Kelsey Grammer, like Dwight Schultz, and Dwight Schultz has kind of gone a little bit further over to the dark side in recent years. But then again, I also recognize that a lot of that is just someone said, "Hey, here's money. Could you come on my talk show and say stupid things?" And if you're an actor, you say, "Sure." And the idea that you're sad because you're lonely in Hollywood and then you blame it on you being a conservative. I actually think it might just be not even that you're conservative. Maybe it's just that you're kind of a jerk. But that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so I'm very excited about the Mario movie. I'm very excited to see how Chris Pratt brings to this thing, because this is one of the things I actually pointed out in other points, was that Chris Pratt is only a little bit younger than me. Mm-hmm. So his first Mario was probably still that Captain Lou Albano Super Mario Brothers. And so he knows them with that, hey, do the Mario. So that's his introduction. Charles Martinet comes by a little later and starts doing the voice of the "It's me, Mario." And it's delightful when everyone loves it. I certainly love it. But, it does build into this idea that there is more to this story that could be told. And as I always say, you don't want to always tell the same story with the same formula, because people will know and people will get bored. So that's that.
Yeah, and I think good acting is more important than a proper accent.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that over,
and what is the proper accent for an Italian plumber?
Again, it's like if you got rid of Apu, then you have to get rid of all of these caricatures.
Yeah, well, but still, even with Apu, I want to tell you about a really good show I recently found. It is called, I want to say it's called Chippendales on Hulu.
I heard a lot of good things about it. Kumail's in it.
Yeah, I know. He is so good in that. And it's at one time where you can see it plays both with greenhorn comedy, which, I do love greenhorn comedy, as the child of an immigrant myself. And also gives him his due as a real smart guy who knows business, but also who makes mistakes and needs other people to help him and doesn't reject help when someone comes to give him help. So it's actually really brilliant. I've only watched the first episode so far, which is really beautiful and tragic, because I realized during it, that's that big, because there was a big Playmate of the Month scandal where her boyfriend, anyway, if you know the boyfriend and Playmate story from this time, you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, that's the story they were telling. And I didn't even realize it, because he was not feeling what was happening in his life, because he had gotten himself with a Playmate and then realized he couldn't keep her. And that got dark in its own way. But it's about the birth of the Chippendales. And, that first episode was really good and really strong and really powerful, and I highly recommend it. And because it does show that you can do greenhorn comedy, especially if you're someone who has an insight into greenhorn culture. And for those who don't know, greenhorn comedy, it's basically anytime you have someone who's like a fresh off the boat immigrant, whether that's Yogi Jorgensen or various white ethnic stereotypes, the Irishman, the Jewish person, the German person, whoever just comes off the boat, or all the other ethnicities that are new to a certain situation. It's mined for comedy because, of course, it is, fish out of water comedy. But the best fish out of water comedy always has at its core the fact that that's still a really powerful fish. They may be out of water, but they're actually going to learn how to breathe air. They're going to learn how to survive in this society because they can make mistakes and be funny, but they're actually much smarter than you give them credit for. And that's what makes for the best stories. So I'm excited about Chippendales.
Apu was a business owner.
Apu's a great character, and I understand. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I will say this. I'm blanking on that's Hank
Azaria. I don't think you need to make Hank Azaria feel bad about Apu.
No. And I don't think, that's the thing. I think that it's one of these things where, you do a certain character for a while. And to be fair, the man's been doing that character for 20, 30 years now. There comes a point where it's like, and this is something that, Dave Chappelle realized with his Dave Chappelle show.
So, yeah, I mean, like, for a lot of people, as Pakistani people coming up, we were never offended by it.
Yeah.
We always thought it was like, hey, we're being included in the joke. Everybody gets
yeah. And I think, and that is
like, so I don't think.
And for what it's worth, that is actually the point of the problem with Apu is not that Apu is a problem. It's that this is the only voice we're getting, and really what you want is more voices, which I do think that Chippendales is giving. I'm going to say,
we got to start somewhere. You can't come out of the gate being completely full formed and finished and like, okay, we're perfectly as equal and as good as we should be.
No.
And take steps to get there, and we don't need to admonish somebody who took the first step as saying you were wrong for taking the first step. You didn't take this way.
And again, this is where I think, and this is something I think you will agree with me on, is sometimes internet culture gets a little out of its hand, gets a little out of pocket, And I don't think that Hank Azaria was ever as pilloried as people like to play him as being pilloried.
He was a hero of mine. For what he did, and to see people to see him feel bad about something he shouldn't feel bad about.
Well, I don't think he feels bad. I think he just understands he's done this joke for 30 years. No, and at a certain point,
people made him get up and apologize like he did something wrong, like he was a bad person for having done that impression.
Well, and again, I don't.
Unfortunate, because you don't have the right to tell me I should be offended. Right? If it has nothing to do
No. Well, first off,
and tell people you should be offended because of this.
There are a lot of Pakistani and Indian Americans who did take offense.
I'll guarantee you there was a bunch of people wanting to wave banners around for their cause that found the 5 brown people that were offended by it and paraded them around like it represented the rest of us. I don't think it did. That was just my opinion about it. I feel rather strongly about it because that's a person I always admired, and I was always grateful for what he did for people from where I come from. And I don't think he deserves to be made to feel bad. And I think that's unfortunate. And
I'm going to make a couple of points.
So, yeah, but that's just something I feel really strongly about.
Yeah. No, and I understand. And I agree with you. You're right to feel strongly about it. You're right to feel that people are co-opting your story. But at the, and the thing is to me, Hank Azaria saying, I'm not going to do Apu anymore has a lot more to do with the idea that he's done Apu for a long time. And at a certain point, the joke becomes self-referential and it stops being what you want it to be and starts becoming just a gag. You get yourself too flanderized, to use another Simpson term. And I think, and the
that's
thing,
what happened. That's a rosy way of looking at history.
No. I think what happened,
something wrong, but we did.
Well, no. The actual point is that either Apu becomes either Hank Azaria has to play Apu as the perfect immigrant, or he has to play Apu as who he was. Apu, who he was always a very complex character and a very interesting and meaty character. And it's sad that he doesn't get as much play as he did. But then again, he is also the guy who runs the local Quickie Mart. So how much in this story should he be when, unlike Mozz Sislak, who he also plays, there's actually a reason for Homer to keep on going back to the bar. So I guess
you need eggs, you need bread, you need milk.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, but you can also get that at the grocery store. So,
The Quickie Mart.
No, I'm sure they have an actual grocery store in Springfield somewhere. I don't think it's a food desert.
I don't think Walmart has destroyed Springfield yet. Or
that is entirely possible. That is entirely possible. But anyway, but the actual deeper point is, and I don't want to relitigate this because I agree with you on a lot of levels on this. I do think that the backlash that you get on the internet can sometimes be overwhelming, but I think that leads to an equal and opposite overwhelming backlash where no one is actually even talking about what the actual point of the problem with Apu was.
But that's my point. There is no problem with Apu.
Well, no. There is a problem with Apu
where there are no problems.
No. There are problems when you have someone playing an ethnicity for laughs that is not theirs. It's Amos and Andy.
I don't see that as a problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, that, and that's fine for you as an individual. Not everyone feels that way, and a lot of people.
Yeah, but also, don't ascribe feelings to people either.
I know, but what I'm saying is, I'm sure there are, like I said, I don't know your story. You don't know my story. No one knows anyone's story. But I am certain that there were a lot of
I challenge you. The next brown person you run into, take a tally. Ask any of them and see how many percentages of them tell you that they're offended.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. All I know is what the media tells me. And I know that a lot of brown people made films in the early aughts centering around a lack of representation for brown people.
Yeah, and that was one of the first bit of inclusions.
That actual brown actors kind of felt offended by that because it was a job they weren't getting.
Yeah, no, of course.
And it was a job that went to the Portuguese guy.
That for their own lack of talent want to blame it on something.
Well, no, it's again, systemic racism is a real thing. And
I think that was one of the things that helped stop the racism or help curtail it rather than to exacerbate it.
No one has done more for gay culture than drag queens. Okay? No one has done more for queer culture than drag queens because by being willing to be out there and bawdy and humorous, they created something non-threatening. And because it was non-threatening, people could enjoy it. But that's also a double-edged sword because when you're non-threatening, suddenly you become the joke. Suddenly you become not a full person. You just become the gag of the drag queen. And it is this constant push and pull in media between having someone be funny and a joke, but humanizing them and building them into something more so that you can say, hey, that's another human being, and just going down the rabbit hole of let's make it a joke. And let's just make it a joke, and it becomes whatever the joke's going to be, whether it's gay panic jokes or, brown immigrant jokes or, these people are secretly all rich and control all the media, which is the joke that winds up being the final joke that
right. But those two are not in the same lane at all.
Well, no, it doesn't start that way, but it gets there. That's the thing that is always at the heart of this is that
Yeah, it's so
doesn't
funny.
start there, and it's not from that.
Willing to say, "Oh, it starts here, but it'll get somewhere." But they're never willing to say that about the good stuff. Oh, we started here, but we'll get there, right? Give us we're going to make missteps, but we're aiming in the right direction. Everybody wants to be so willing to say, "Oh, it starts here, but it'll get there." If we're talking about something bad, but if we're talking about something good, you got to apply that same logic to there as well. Of course, we're not going to be perfect when we first get,
And here's what I will say. Apu had longer than most characters in any show. Okay. And really did a lot of good for a lot of people. And, honestly, Hank Azaria does say that. I don't think he's ashamed of what he's done. I don't think, he might have done a Hollywood.
Not big, but they paraded him around the TV making apologies and made him act like he was ashamed of what he did.
Well, I think he probably just thought a little deeper about it. Says, it is kind of weird that I do that. And he has other characters that he does that he probably feels a little more comfortable with, like the gay Hispanic character that he does, which is also a very big, broad stereotype, but he probably feels closer to knowing who that person is. And I think that's also the idea, is like, do I really know who this person is? I can read what the writers wrote, but if no one in the writer's room and I don't really know who this person is beyond the jokes we're telling, are we actually adding to the conversation, or are we just being a possible lightning rod for it? And it becomes that. Are you
going to attach all these possibly this and possibly this? But what you're doing is not looking at what it was.
No, I do look at what it was, and no one this is the idea of, you can look at things that have maybe not aged as well and say, oh, but you know what? In the time, I understand what they did, and what they did was actually really important. And this is where I say, where like drag queens have done a lot for queer culture and welcoming of queer culture, expressly because they were the ones out there saying, look at me, world, and laugh at me if you must, but look at me at least. Because if you laugh at me and look at me, you will at least be seeing me. And then maybe you're going to understand I'm a human being at the end of the day. And that's a good thing. But at the same time, later on, when you start making the choices of who do we want to portray this character, do we want to say, okay, get this person, or do we want to say, well, who can actually sit at the table, who has a little bit more insight into this, who is going not off of what they read about the characters, but who has actually lived a bit of that life.
Yeah, well,
and it's there's.
I don't think everything is that serious.
Well, actually, writing is very serious.
Yeah, but not everything is. Sometimes we just want to laugh. Sometimes
we want to laugh, but to actually get to the laugh, and you know this. You
people want everybody to do their homework before they can laugh at something. Jesus.
No, I want the writers to
read
do
a
their
book
homework
before you can laugh at my jokes. God.
No. You can laugh at any joke you want, but the writer needs to write a joke that is based on a book they read.
I don't tell writers what they need to do.
I'm a writer. I will tell writers anything I think they
need. What everybody needs to hear either.
But it's, Mozzie, we'll agree to disagree on this. I know it's a sore point, I will tell you, and I will tell you the truth. I always came to Sergeant Schultz's defense as a kid too. So, at a certain point, but you know what? At the same time, everyone on Hogan's Heroes were actually Holocaust survivors. So, they actually, I think they were either Holocaust survivors or people that had escaped the Nazis. So there was a lot in there that was, we actually do know what we're talking about. And when we make these jokes, we want to make sure that you understand why we're making these jokes. There were people that understood the history of what they were doing. And, Apu
forget the seriousness of the world.
What?
Sometimes it hurts the medium if you want to inject your escapism with no, you can't escape. I want you to be thinking about this right now too.
No. But I think that as a writer, you owe it to your writing to actually think about what you're writing.
But if you're aiming for that, but that's not the only place to aim with writing.
No. I mean, you can do, but here's the thing. Is a joke made better without context? Or does context always inform the joke?
Always does.
Exactly. So, but within that, then that's all context. And when you tell a joke, you have to tell it within all the context of that joke. I used to do
to put it into.
No, but that's the context that people know about and people are aware of. If I tell jokes about my German pride, it exists in a world where people know that German pride has gotten out of hand a few times in history. And so, if I ignore that reality, that makes me a bad comedian, or a comedian who's playing to people who don't mind that reality. And I don't want to play to those people.
Right. So then don't tell other people who they should or shouldn't play for.
Well, sure. I mean, and that's the thing. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Although at the same time, as an aficionado of comedy, I feel perfectly in my rights to criticize all comedians.
Of your brand, of what you're.
No, I think I can. I believe I get to criticize everything.
Okay.
Because I am a person with an opinion.
Right.
And every person with an opinion has a right to say that opinion.
Right. And
you can't say you can't have that opinion.
These actors are doing, thinking they know everybody's comedy and speaking to that. You can't do that. You don't know their culture. You don't know that. But I know everybody's culture. So I'm going to speak to how they should feel and how you should do comedy.
No. I'm just speaking to how I feel.
No, then
I will say, but that's the thing. I think that's all anyone ever is doing. But this is where I think it gets into this push me, pull you, where I think you're letting things get out of hand. Because at one point it is literally just people saying, I am offended by X. And then someone else comes back and says, you're not allowed to be offended by X. How dare you say this person can't talk?
To me, it feels like you're not allowed to not be offended.
No, that's the thing. To me, like I said, as I always say, because Helena Bonham Carter recently got into a whole thing about
how dare
defending
you
J.K. Rowling. What?
You're a bad person if you're not offended by this.
No. Helena Bonham Carter made a whole thing about how she was defending J.K. Rowling and what's his name? The guy that she does all the movies with. Played Tonto in Lone Ranger. Jack Sparrow.
Oh, Johnny Depp.
And basically it was saying, everyone jumped on this whole thing. And I made the comment, like, I'm trying to remember who was canceled here, the movie star or the billionaire. Because as much as people say, I really hate this person and their opinions, it really has almost no effect on their lives. And I think that when you actually see someone have an effect on their life, it's actually because they actually internalized a little bit of it. And maybe they did say, you know what, I can see their point, and don't deny them that. Don't say that they're just playing to the crowd. Maybe they actually just said, I don't know if I feel comfortable doing this character anymore, because I do realize that it doesn't always work the way I want it to. That to me, the joke is ruined by the fact that not everyone can play. But
I think the vehicle they used to get there was to pretend that everybody was upset when they weren't.
Yeah, well, and again, what I will say is I think the exact opposite was the case, which is that no one was upset, and it was people saying, just so you know, this actually does upset us, and here are the reasons why. And then everyone gets to make their own decision.
People who had no right to say it, they were always saying, no, the argument was, I think...
Again, it was, and I can't remember the actor who did it too, but he was a guy from The Daily Show. It wasn't Asif Manvi. It was
Hassan Minhaj.
I think it was Hassan Minhaj. Basically making this statement that this is this reality.
The one guy they found who was also trying to stand on the show.
I don't think he was the one guy. And again, like I said, Mozz, your experience is your own. You're from Staten Island. God knows what they do in that place.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, I pick on Staten Island because I'm from New Jersey. It's the one part of New York we're allowed to pick on. But no, moving right along.
I grew up in Brooklyn where nobody cared. Everybody made fun of everybody, and that was just a way we got along.
Yeah, and you know what? I feel that. I understand that. and that is a very unique cultural perspective. And if it's part of your cultural baggage, it works. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why a lot of Greenwood.
That's the thing. You would call it baggage. I wouldn't. Right? There you go.
It's always baggage, man. It's always baggage.
Yeah, there you go. Ascribing a way to look at my.
Well, you assume baggage is a negative. Baggage is just what you carry with you. You don't go. Do you just hop on a plane with no clothes?
No, there's no contextual attachment to the word baggage. There's as much as you want to do. And you can overpack your baggage, or you can just carry a nice little carry-on. Mm-hmm. It's still baggage, sure, but it's still what I need. Look, that's words, man. Words can play any way you want to. Okay, yeah.
As they say.
After the argument, sure, I meant it this way.
No, what I'm saying is and actually what my point was, is that there are people, and this is the thing. The thing about New York culture is it's a lot of people from a lot of places stacked on top of each other.
Finding a way to get along.
Exactly. And that is great, but it is a microcosm that is not replicable once you no longer have to live next to people.
I don't
and suddenly, no, it is.
I think it's because people are just lazy. And
no. Well, okay. Well, I'll tell you, Mozz. Yes, people are really, really lazy. And if you were the one brown kid in Minnesota, suddenly your experience is a little different when everyone makes fun of Apu.
I would defy you to find the brown kid that had a bad experience because of Apu, and wouldn't turn around and actually tell you, hey, no, I thought that was pretty cool. I got to be part of the joke. I got to be part of the crowd, and I felt included. I think you'll hear equal representation of people taking that viewpoint.
Obviously, I can't present any data about brown kids in Minnesota because the only brown kid I knew in Michigan was Filipino. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think they appreciated the jokes about Asians that some of my very racist friends as a kid insisted on telling them every time they were there. So, I can't speak to everyone's situation. And again, I will say Apu probably did more good than harm. But the fact of the matter is that Apu was actually an effort to take what was kind of a bad stereotype that we had seen many times up until Apu. Long before Apu, there were lots of, thank you, come again guys. Who were poorly defined, vaguely defined, even where they were from was ill-defined because, they're Muslim, they're Sikh, they're Indian. No one cared. They were just funny immigrant people. And, Apu actually built up on that, which is why Apu became a noted person in society, and then, what happens next, and we don't need to go into that. And the idea isn't so much that Apu has to go. It's that you can't have Apu be the excuse for other people doing lesser work.
Yeah, but that's on them. Go after them.
Well, yeah, but no one, that's the thing. It's, what always happens is whataboutism. And so if you're going to tolerate really good work that runs up to the edge and you can't find a way to make it work by, just having people at the table who can speak to it more honestly. And honestly, what I'll say is that, quite frankly, the people on The Simpsons always made an effort to really treat Apu with respect and dignity, and with it, very few other characters got. Although that in itself becomes a double-edged sword because, you can't let him be a screw-up like everyone else in Springfield kind of thing, So you also go into that model immigrant problem, which is its own messed up thing, because that's where you get into the whole, so many tropes about, model minorities and, this group is good at this thing and that's good and we will appreciate them in this context, in this box. So,
yeah,
it's always going to be problematic when it is not someone who has an authentic experience speaking. Because once it's an authentic experience, you can give them their own space to play. And that can sometimes go awry, as it has with Dave Chappelle, where he felt it went too far and people weren't appreciating his work in the way he intended, and so he left his show, and that's a noble choice. It's not a bad thing that Dave Chappelle said, you guys aren't getting my jokes. You guys are actually exploiting my jokes. I'm not doing these jokes anymore. And then he went and became even more popular and famous doing other things. And we will not even discuss anything else about him because there's nothing else to discuss. Yeah, I honestly feel he's navigating it very well. So he's got his opinions. He's going to make his opinions, but he also knows the problems with his. He also knows that, you still have to deal with the audience. And Eric Idle had a whole thing with that recently where he was saying, you can't be mad if the audience doesn't laugh. And if the audience is laughing, then don't worry. That's the thing. It's like you can't be mad because the audience doesn't like your joke. Your job as a comedian is to tell jokes the audience will enjoy. Okay. We did not even get to talk about James Gunn taking over DC. But
I think what this hopefully points to is let's just calm down and have a good time. I think this movie, the Super Mario movie, is going to be awesome. It looks awesome, and I can't wait to hear banter between Chris Pratt and Charlie Day. I'm so looking forward to that. I think it's going to be really, really fun. And if nothing else, if this is a vehicle just to see those two play off of each other, I'm here for it.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if Chris Pratt's up to Charlie Day.
No.
I'm just going to say.
I agree. I'm
going to say that. I
I
think Luigi's Haunted Mansion is the next movie. That's all I'm saying. I think that Charlie Day is going to,
he's going to steal the show for sure. But not to say Chris Pratt, if you've ever seen him in what was that show?
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec. He was brilliant in that.
He was brilliant. And he's a very talented comedian.
But I agree with you. Miles below Charlie Day.
Yeah, or Charlie Day's just miles above. It's not a contest,
right.
And to be fair, Chris Pratt's doing Marvel films and has a personal trainer, so you got to take it where it can go. But along those lines, about James Gunn. So James Gunn is taking over DC, which is great. Arguably, James Gunn, who cut his teeth at Trauma. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah, I believe. What did he do? Did he do? I don't think he did Surf Nazis Must Die, but he might have done. I think he did. I think he did one of the Toxic Avengers, possibly Toxic Avenger 3. I have to actually double check it. I really don't know what he's done. But I know he started at Trauma, and he has a great love for Trauma, and I have a great love for Trauma.
But what is he known for?
I never know the behind the scenes people. I only know the characters. I love the characters, and so. But anyway, he is going to bring that Trauma magic to DC.
But what else? He's also known in the superhero world for something like some.
The Suicide Squad and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, Gunn was Guardians of the first one.
All of them.
All of them. Oh, even the third one. Interesting.
Yeah, the third one, which is not out yet, and that's the one that because there was a whole thing. It was a thing, and Disney probably, this was, and again, to your point, this is where people got very up in arms on the Twitters, and the Twitters kind of made something look larger than it should have, and James Gunn kind of got fired from Guardians, and then they brought him back. Because at the end, it was just kind of stupid that anyone thought that what was the problem was really a problem. So, because again, it was something that falls under satire, and humor, and like maybe dark and gross humor, but still humor. And I don't want to sit here and defend James Gunn, but I do know that he came from Trauma, and I do know that Trauma makes very weird stuff. Oh, I think he did Romeo and Juliet. I'm trying to remember. One second, we're gonna check it real good. James.
Yeah, I did not care for Suicide Squad at all. I thought that was
the Suicide Squad or Suicide Squad.
Oh,
because there's the one that just came out.
The new one, the with the starfish.
Yeah,
that was really good.
Yeah, that was the one he did.
Done. Oh, that was really good.
Yeah, see, that's why they put him in charge of stuff, and then he did Peacemaker.
Hmm.
Oh,
okay. I didn't get into it, so I never really got to watch it, but I heard really good things about it.
Oh, Peacemaker was a lot of fun. Yeah, and it's very let's see. Oh, let's see. He did Super with Rainn Wilson, which isn't Trauma, but still. I'm trying to see where he
heard a lot of good things about that too.
Yeah. Of course, he did the Scooby-Doo movies. Let's see. After several Trauma films, Gunn wrote and produced the superhero comedy The Specials, directed by doesn't say what he did, it just said he was working there. Oh yeah, he did Romeo. He wrote the independent film Romeo and Juliet, which is my favorite Trauma film. Yeah, it's basically Romeo and Juliet, but told with a trauma bent. So it was very good. But yeah, so he's actually a really good writer. He likes complex ideas, but he also likes big, bold craziness. And so I do think it's going to be good for DC, because I do think DC gets better when they lean because they are the founders of comic books, really, of superhero comic books. They are it is the house that Jor-El built. And so I think he's going to bring that superhero-y goodness back to it. So that's a positive. That's my opinion.
Is he also going to be in charge of like Superman going forward?
Yeah, he's in charge of. Well, there's two guys. There's him, and then there's like another guy who I think is like more of a producer guy that you don't know who he is. But
I liked Black Adam. I really liked.
I really like Black Adam too. And I think that, and for what it's worth, I think maybe the fact that it got to live really had a lot to do with people that wanted to move more in that direction. So I do think that, and that I think is one of the reasons Gunn is there. So I think that there is a team that's there that knows what Gunn's aesthetic is and knows what is going to be good for these DC characters going forward. And at the same time, not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, because he has also said that, Joker is going to exist in its own universe, and that's going to be stuff that will be there. But he's also said that everything is connected because, again, it's multiversals, Right. And DC were the first people to really double down on multiversals when they did the Tale of Two Flashes, where they started talking about how there was the Golden Age and the Silver Age, and these are two different universes. And, building out these things, which are now coming back into their stories with the Justice Society. So I do think that all of these things are going to come together. I do think Gunn's going to be a good hand at the wheel.
So is he going to be involved on the other side of things too, with like Pattinson's Batman?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I mean, technically he's in charge of all of them. Well, it depends. It depends on what he does. So here's the thing. Right now, he's going into what is effectively a Kevin Feige kind of mode, where Kevin Feige doesn't really interfere with the creators. He hires people that he knows is going to tell a good story for that character, and then gives them something of free reign. And then he comes in and says, "Don't say that. Do say this. Follow that. Here's the things you can say, and here's the things you can't say." Because there is actually a larger plan I want to work towards.
Right. Here's what helps the mission. Here's what doesn't.
Yeah. But aside from that, he says, you know what? If you have a good idea and you're doing your work on time,
and
go ahead.
The broader mission in perspective, then play around.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because that's what you have to do. Okay.
I'm excited. I think this is going to be good because
I think it's going to be great too.
Really good. And I'm down to see more of that.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna get a lot of good stuff soon, man.
People are saying that they're going to go with a much lighthearted tone, much more hopeful tone for Superman as well, which will be nice.
It could be. I mean, that's the thing with Superman. I think you can do a lot with him. I think you can do a darker take on Superman. I think you can have a Superman who is hopeful, but is also looking at people like, why do you make me work so hard? Or, please don't treat me as a god. I really, sort of like, if you ever, I'm sure you've seen Life of Brian, where he's like, I'm not the Messiah. You have not seen Life of Brian?
No.
You should watch Life of Brian. It's a good film. Because it is about, the guy who everyone thinks is the Messiah saying, I'm not the Messiah. Leave me alone. And yet the cult of idolatry rises up around him anyway. So
that's funny.
Yeah, it's not a long movie. You should watch it. I think it's on one of the streamers. So you have your ample free time.
Yeah.
All right, Mozz. If people like this show, actually, any final thoughts before we go to do all the pitches?
No. I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground here, and we finally got you. You finally got your Apu show. So there you go.
Yes.
We discussed this years ago. That was the one we really wanted to do. We got to do it, and I think we did a good job at it, man. Even though you kept on cutting out my mic. Okay, friends, if you've got opinions on any of this stuff, why don't you write to us at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's CapesandLunatics, all spelled out, @gmail.com. And likewise, call us and leave us a voice message and tell us how right we are or how wrong we are at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And then go down into those show notes. Look for that little old Linktree link at linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. And then look at all of our lovely merch. Look at our Patreon where you can give us money on a regular basis. Look at our Cash App where you can just give us money for no reason. And just generally find out about all of our shows, because there's a lot of stuff on the Capes and Lunatics Network. Probably something that'll interest you too. And Mozz, if they find something interesting and they want to talk to you about it, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email way that our mothers and fathers once said at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And follow me on the Twitter when I live tweet things when I do at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for coming out this night, connecting with us in this very super way. Please join us again next week when we will once again super connect with you once more. Good night.